Joseph Stalin died on March the 5th, 1953. We know he was murdered by the Jewish cabal controlling the Kremlin. The head of this cabal was invisible, Lazar Kaganovich. Stalin was surrounded by Jews. His last wife was Esther Kaganovich, Lazar's sister. After the Bolshevik Revolution, Russian Jews grabbed power in the empire and started to rule in their way. The ancient Khazar Empire had two kings, invisible Kagan, responsible for ideology or religion, and Bek, in charge of day-to-day administration. Name Kaganovich means son of Kagan. Stalin was only the Bek, yet modern propaganda blames him for any crime committed by the Soviet administration. After Stalin's assassination, Kremlin Jews started a new purge. The ruler was a demonic Lavrenti Beria of Georgian Jewish ancestry who controlled the political police in the Soviet Union. His aim was to consolidate Jewish power. Marshal Zhukov had a reputation of being an anti-Semite. He was promoted and protected by Joseph Stalin and had reasons to expect imprisonment after Stalin's assassination. Zhukov was dangerous for the Jewish mafia because he controlled the Red Army, which, they believed, was a center of Russian chauvinism and anti-Semitism. Zhukov greatly contributed to the Soviet victory in World War II, but was already expendable in 1953. In 1952, Marshal Zhukov asked for a permit to organize military training around Moscow and in the city. The permit was given by Joseph Stalin. End of June 1953, 2 divisions from Ural started training near the Russian capital. Red Army tanks and soldiers entered the city. Foreign diplomats reported Red Army trucks and tanks on Moscow streets on June 27, 1953. This night, Beria was absent at the premiere of the new opera in the Bolshoi Theater. This is what outsiders know. Marshal Zhukov asked trusted members of Politburo to bring pistols for the Kremlin meeting. Marshal Zhukov and Marshal Vasilevsky were Politburo members, and their responsibility was to knock out the heads of the Jewish cabal. The meeting started on June 27, 1953 at 4 p.m. Zhukov and Vasilevsky were sitting together on the opposite side of the large table were sitting Kaganovich and Beria. There was a small white table with a telephone between Kaganovich and Beria. This telephone was directly connected to Lubyanka, the headquarters of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Taking up the receiver from the hooks gave connection to Lubyanka. Vasilevsky excused everybody and went to the other side of the room to take some tea. He came to the wall and cut off the telephone cable. Beria and Kaganovich wanted to take their pistols, but Zhukov was faster and told them to put their hands up. Beria was executed this very night by Politburo members. Kaganovich was gradually expelled from the ruling elite. This night, Zhukov's soldiers entered Lubyanka and 2 other NKVD buildings in Moscow. NKVD is the joint law enforcement agency of the whole Soviet Union that directly executed the will of the All-Union Communist Party. They executed everybody who refused to surrender. Thousands of mainly Jewish NKVD members died in Moscow that summer night. This is the version of the story reported by Marshal Viktor Kulikov, who was a Red Army colonel attacking NKVD buildings. Jewish rule in the Soviet Union was based on fear. See Protocol number 1. On June 27, 1953, the top of this pyramid of power was dismantled by Russian heroes. Official history says that Lavrenti Beria was arrested and even had a trial. This version is partly true. There was a trial, but Beria was represented by an actor. Many people in the Soviet Union realized that something important happened in Moscow in the summer of 1953. Even Gulag prisoners noticed sudden and inexplainable changes of behavior of their oppressors. NKVD soldiers lost their arrogance and were talking about leaving the country. Information about Zhukov's coup soon came to New York. Vyacheslav Molotov was a Soviet foreign minister, and through his Jewish wife had connections with the American oligarchy. Molotov came to New York and had a meeting with the American Tsar, Bernard Baruch. Baruch informed President Eisenhower about the June 27th coup. The Soviet Union was gradually transformed into a home of Soviet people. Jewish grip had been significantly weakened. The Soviet Empire also changed her foreign policy. We should remember the Suez Canal crisis of 1956, British, French, and Israeli aggression on Egypt. There are speculations that the only reason that the aggressors stopped their campaign was a Soviet threat to use atomic weapons against them. In December 1956, there was Fidel Castro's uprising in Cuba, and American puppets lost power. Why did America not attack Cuba? Some sources say that the only reason was the Soviet threat to use the same weapons against Israel America was planning to use against Cuba. For sure, Soviet leaders did not represent Jewish interests in 1956 and in the subsequent years. The Moscow June 27, 1953 coup was one of the most important events in the history of the 20th century. This coup ended classical dialectical rule of two superpowers supporting Zionist domination. Marshal Vasilevsky and Marshal Zhukov were Soviet and Russian heroes who saved millions of lives of Gentiles in the Soviet Union and worldwide. Since that time, the Soviet Union gradually became a target of Zionist aggression. Destruction of the Soviet Empire was not a victory of democracy, whatever it means, but a victory of the global deep state.